Taki, maybe you could start by the question Blek asked you. Maybe you both asked each other wonderful questions. So, do you remember the very first time that you decided to write your name on a public space?
Yeah, so the first time I wrote, I still remember where it was because my friends were writing and they had a marker. I said, oh, look, let me try that. So I just put my name and I put up my street, and after that I just took off. That was it. That's what you asked me.
Yeah, what year?
That was 1969.
What month?
I don't know. But I remember the exact place and everything.
Summer, winter?
I think it was in the fall. Probably.
In the fall?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you remember the first time, Blek, that you witnessed Taki's writing?
Yeah, I remember it was in Paris in the 14th arrondissement. I was with a friend of mine. I did start by myself alone because I was afraid to do it. And we tried to make American pieces with some spray can, and we didn't have the skill to do it. So the result was absolutely horrible. And after that, we came back home and tried to think what we can do, you know, because it's not easy, you know, to make a small piece in different colors. It's very difficult. You need to have a really a strong skill to do it. And so I said to my friend Gerard, I said to him, oh, when I was a kid, I went to Italy for vacation, and I saw some graffiti done during the World War II by the fascists, and they used the stencil to make the propaganda for Mussolini. And I remember the face of Mussolini with a helmet done by a stencil and paint. They didn't use a spray can at the time, they used a brush and a stencil. So I asked my father why people are doing this. And my father explained to me that it was propaganda during the war, World War II. And so I kept this in my mind, and I said to my friend, we could use stencil to make graffiti because it's easy technique, very easy, and when you do something in the street, you know, you can't stay for a long time at the same place because it's very dangerous for the police and for many different things. So the technique of stencil is the best technique to make a graffiti because you stay for 2 minutes and you leave a nice image in the street.
So tell us your best story about being arrested.
Oh, I've been arrested a million times. I was in court in 1990. I was in court, and so it was kind of depressing for me for a year. And the judge told me he had some photos of the graffiti, and he told me, "Oh, I can't condemn you for this. It's too beautiful." So I had to pay to fine. I had a fine to pay. A fine to pay, yeah. I had a fine to pay, but a small fine. After that, you never been arrested?
No, I've been arrested, and the main thing about writing graffiti, I want to be anonymous. I wanted everybody to see who's doing all this writing, and they'd be talking about you in the crowd, and you'd be the guy that was doing it, and everybody was saying, "Ah, these guys, they're messing up the houses, everything." So that was the big thing about it, not to be known.
So Taki, tell me, forgive my ignorance here, I'm just learning about you. What the significance of 183 is?
183 is the street I lived on. It's 183rd Street. Most people in
Who's in the Heights?
in the Heights.
Was it 183rd in Ottawa?
I live by Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
But most people in Manhattan, they'll live near a street, number street. So they pick up that number. In Brooklyn, there are not too many street numbers, so a lot of people would use different styles there. That's why it was different in parts of town.
Taki, can you tell us about the New York Times piece?
The New York Times? Yeah, it was in 1971, and they found us, you know, and they made a good interview. It was pretty good. You know, I was a kid though, you know, and after that, Channel 2 interviewed me for television. Warhol's interviewed me, but it was still a goof for me. So I you know, it was doing it for fun. That's,
Wait, both of you, when you were in grade school and high school, were you the rebellious types or the good kids?
uh,
I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean,
I was good, but I was interested in art. At the
Yeah,
time.
okay.
Yeah, I was always interested in art.
Yes, a rebellion against, yeah, of course. Because when you do things like that, it means that when you live in a city, you need to express your personality, your who you are to the people. It's a need that we have. So Taki told me that he wrote his name everywhere because he wanted to be known at the same time, not to be anonymous, but to be known by the people. And it was exactly the same thing for me. I want to be known, but anonymous too. So that's the reason I took a name. I didn't take my real name. I took I don't know how do you say.
Pseudonym?
Yeah, pseudonym. And yeah, so it's a kind of rebellion against society. Of course, yeah, against society, against. For me, it was against the establishment of art culture. You know, it was very difficult for an artist to have an access to galleries if you are not known, if you are not recognized. So it was a way to show my work to the people, and at the same time to try to be involved in the history of art, which is
I think the importance of graffiti in the end is that people who really had access, but they had things they want to put out, and they felt they could just do it on the wall. You know, they didn't have to have somebody to put them up in a big important place. You could do it anywhere, and that's how it got big.
yeah.
Taki, where do you find your inspiration for the works you've done? And Blek, same question for you. What is it that captures you to do the images that you've done?
I didn't really have a lot of inspiration. It was more like, just keep doing it. Like an empty space, I'm gonna hit on it. You know, nobody's been on it before. And that's how it was when I started. Later it became so trampled on each other. Everybody was trying to be bigger than the other guy, and I didn't want to do it anymore. You know?
Blek, I understand, Xavier, you prefer to do walls, but Taki, you don't. Tell me why you like walls, and Taki, why you choose other venues to put your work on.
It's more, you know, walls are more appropriate to my work, you know. So that's the reason I like walls. But as you said, between street artists, there is a lot of competition. a big competition. It's not. It's a war between us, and it's not easy to live, you know, because it can be violent sometimes. I don't know if you have some trouble with the people, but I had some trouble with people in the 80s because it was a question of territory. When you try to paint in a place where another street artist was working, it's kind of competition that you create, and it can be violent. It can be violent also.
How old were you when you started graffiti?
Oh. When I started, I was like 16. By the time I stopped, kids like 12 years old were doing it because they want to copy the older guys. Basically. Yeah. Start now.
Like, what made you choose to represent yourself as a rat? Like, where does the rat come from?
First of all, rat is an anagram of art.
Oh.
Okay, so the two things combined together was good for me, and so also Paris is full of rats, you know, really full of rats. Even that the mayor of Paris decided not to kill the rats, to preserve the rats because it's more ecology not to kill the rats. So now, if you go to Paris, you will be very surprised that you can find rats everywhere. And so that's the reason I started to make rats, because I wanted to say to the Parisian that oh, you live in a big city, beautiful, one of the most beautiful city in the world, but underground, millions of rats are living, and the parasite, like parasite,
Yeah,
parasite,
yes.
parasite your life. So that's the things I wanted to say to the people.
So you're two graffiti artists from across the globe. Is it a brotherhood? Do you get together? I'm wondering, Taki, if you've ever met in the past Warhol or Keith Haring, or either of you know Banksy? He's a little elusive.
Yeah, I didn't meet these guys
Okay.
because we just didn't cross each other. When I interviewed for Interview, which is Warhol's magazine, they said, "Oh, go down to meet Andy," you know, and I'm like 16. And I said, "What's going to happen when I go there?" He says, "Oh, they're going to take a picture of you." I said, "You know, I'd rather go play Frisbee in the park." So, you know, like Futura, he went, he met all these guys, you know, and they make Madonna and all this, so, you know, that would have been good too. You know, it's nice in the park.
He's a pure artist. He's a pure artist, a real artist, you know, authentic, which is not the case of many artists in the world. So
You wouldn't have gone to Warhol?
yeah, I would go.
How has this experience been for you at Graffiti HeArt the last week, you two meeting each other?
It's like as soon as we met,
Yeah.
it's like right away we started to talking for like 20 minutes. You know, like I saw him a month and we're catching up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it feels.
We are the same generation, so
Yes.
we have many same thing in common, you know. So the thing that I have to say that I made a trip to New York City in 1972, and I saw his work in everywhere. And I remember to ask my friend Larry, who invited me in New York at that time, and I told him, who is this guy? You know, why he's doing this? What does it mean? Taki, what does it mean? And he told me, I think he's a crazy guy. maybe a satanic sect, or he thought you were a satanic
Yeah.
sect. And I said, wow, that's something, because it was completely new, 1972, you know, for a European guy arriving in New York and discovering all those graffitis and all those signatures in the subway everywhere. It was absolutely a revelation, because it didn't exist in Europe at all. Nobody had the idea to express themselves in the streets. So it was a big revolution in my mind, and it took me 10 years to start to make graffiti after that. So thank you to you.
Thank you on that. As far as us, the first guy that was writing in the neighborhood was a guy that was writing Julio 204. And we didn't know, we said, you know, what does this mean? You know, it's everywhere. We said, maybe in July, on the 20th at 4 o'clock, something is gonna happen. So then we figured it out, that it was a guy writing all over the place. And that's how it started, really.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of funny.
But it was incredible, because you covered the city. Even in 1972, very, very early. It was really the beginning for you. You worked for 3 years, but it was the beginning of this movement. And you covered the city, completely the city, all over the city. It was absolutely incredible thing.
It was great that it just spread.
Yeah.
Without the internet, you know. Like the A train would go to Brooklyn and they'd see my name, and some guy would say, oh, I could do this. And it would come up and they'd say, oh, some guy's doing it down there. So that's how it went. It was like really cool.
So do you know also how the evolution of the street art since after New York, which city was contaminated by graffiti? Do you know? It was Philadelphia maybe, or Washington? Or
Well, you know, Philadelphia thinks they were first. That's, you know, that's the big argument. So, but yeah, whoever started it anywhere was the first guy.
Okay, but in the evolution, what city started to make graffiti after you? Maybe in Boston, you find some people making graffiti, or
Well, there's books written about that now.
Okay.
You know, so go to the book.
So how does it feel when you originally were graffiti artists? You were underground, you were anonymous, you were against the rebels against the system. Now it's all flipped, and now you're artists and selling works and commercial and becoming. It's sort of, you've changed roles now. How does that feel?
You know, it's really in my life, you have to figure, because I was doing it in 69 until 72, now it's how many years? 50 years. So it's kind of good that it's happening now. Because, you know, I don't have to do it as a living or anything, and it's good. I meet all these nice people and everything. So that's what I see about it.
All these nice Greeks.
Yes. All the Greeks in Cleveland. Like a dozen of them.
Tell me, where are there other Blek pieces around the city now?
Where are there other Blek pieces in the city now? There's one on Prospect along Red Steakhouse. There's one on Eastport near Blue Agave. There's one down in the Merwin's Wharf on a bridge, beautiful piece, which is The Man Who Walks the Walls. By the way, let me start back. The one on Prospect by Red is the first time, that's one of your new works, Blek.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in a public space, and it's the Joubla. Thank you. Merci. And the one along Blue Agave and East 4th is a ballerina. It's beautiful. The one down by Merwin's Wharf is The Man Who Walks the Walls. The one in the back of the gallery, Graffiti HeArt, is Tug of War, and it's only the third public time it's been installed by Blek le Rat. The other two places are in Oregon and Dubai.
Yeah.
And this is
first.
you know, the first, now, it's not technically the first, because yesterday at Merwin's Wharf, the man who walks on walls, Taki also has his name on that piece. But this is, the first time that the Napoleon actually has both of them together, so